Welcome to WTEW Bible Studies. So we've gone through a series called Insert 20, and we've seen that the book of Revelation is not one chronology. There's actually six chronologies that all end at the same point in time, and then you pick up with every chronology. You don't keep reading through the book of Revelation, you're going to get confused. You stop there and you pick up in chapter 20 and you finish the book of Revelation, and then you move on to the next story. And so these chronologies, the first one is found, this is a whole story, Revelation 6:1 to 6:17. So you read that story and then you jump to chapter 20 and read through the end of the book of Revelation. And that'll be one continuous story. Now the second chronology begins in Revelation 7:1 and it ends in 8:5. So when you finish with 8:5, don't read 8:6, okay? Just go right to chapter 20 and read chapter 20 through 22. And when you finish that, you say, good, that story's ended. Now I'm going to go to the next story. And the next story, chronology 3, this is Revelation 8:6 to 11:19. These are the trumpets. So these trumpets are one continuous story. But when you finish 11:19, again, you don't go to chapter 12. You go to Revelation 20 and you read that through 22. And then you'll come back for chronology number 4. And there's 6 verses that aren't part of this chronology. So you start this one starts in Revelation 12:7 and we'll go to 14:20. So this is a chronology that most people just overlook as a single thing at all. They don't see that, especially chapter 14 has the same things that are listed in chapter 11 that you see in chapter 6, that you see in chapter 16, that you see in chapter 19. So they make up all kinds of things about it because they don't see it as a story that ends right there in chapter 14. So when you finish chapter 14, again, don't go to 15, insert chapter 20, read through the end of Revelation, and then pick up with chronology number 5, which begins at Revelation 15:1 and goes through 16:21. These are the bowls of God's wrath, so all 7 of them there. So when you finish reading chapter 16, don't go to 17 again. We're going to go to 20 and read 20 through the end of the story, and you'll see how this all flows. The last chronology, Revelation 18:1 to 19:21. And of course from there, Revelation 20 just picks up after 19, so you just read straight through. There's no skipping around there. That is the end of the story. So there are 6 different chronologies, and those are the ones. The one that seems like it gets everybody right to start, the seals. There's 7 seals. And what I'm telling you is that one story ends at the 6th seal, but yet there's still another 7th seal. How does that all play in with each other? We'll just have to explain that. So the 6th seal, that starts when the Great Tribulation ends. It covers then the entire span of God's wrath. So Great Tribulation lasts 3.5 years. That's going to be the worst time on earth. God says, if I didn't stop that time, everybody on earth would die. So how does God stop that time? He enters back into earth and he starts pouring out his wrath. So the Great Tribulation is Satan uses his armies, people on earth, to kill God's people. That's the Great Tribulation. Now, when it gets to God's wrath, God kills those people that were killing his people. So this is God's vengeance. This is God's wrath. He says, you shouldn't have done that. Now I'm going to punish you for it. I'm going to take your life. So if you gather against God to fight against him when he comes, that's going to be the worst day of your life. We got to hang on to Jesus, even if it means our death during the Great Tribulation. So we've got, when he opens the 6th seal, there's a great earthquake. Then we see the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fall to earth. There's a guy named Nelson Waters that recently did a good video explaining how the events of Matthew chapter 24 coincide with the events of Revelation chapter 6. What he doesn't understand is that chapter 6 verse 17 is the end of the story. He thinks it continues with verse 7. But he did a really good job of comparing Matthew 24 with Revelation chapter 6. So if we go back to Matthew 24, we're going to see that sun, moon, and stars darkened. In Matthew 24 verse 29 it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days. So immediately after this 3.5 year period of great tribulation, we're going to have The sun darken, the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall to heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. So that's exactly what happens here when he opens the sixth seal. We got the sun became black as sackcloth, the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell under the earth, even as a fig tree casts its untimely figs, and heaven departs as a scroll when it's rolled together. So that is a picture. The great tribulation has just ended. God's going to pour out his wrath, and that's what we see. And it ends on the great day of God's wrath. That's the last day of God's wrath. That's the last bad thing that God's going to do to the earth. He's going to kill those people that were killing his people. And that's the last of the time of that. So if you read about any other bad thing that's going to happen in the whole book of the Revelation, you've come to the end of it right here already in Revelation chapter 6, verse 17. So then what? We pick up in chapter 7. That does not happen after 17. So this time span for chapter 6 of the book of Revelation, that's the whole period of God's wrath. And I'm guessing that's going to be 75 days. So where do I find that? I find that in Daniel chapter 12, verse 11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waits and comes to the 1,330 days. So 1,335 days after the abomination of desolation is set up and the sacrifice is taken away. The Jews are going to be sacrificing twice daily a lamb right there on the Temple Mount, and it's going to be taken away. So the day that that's taken away, they're going to set up the abomination of desolation. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't matter because it happens the same day that they stop the Jewish sacrifice. 1,335 days after that, you're blessed because that's when God's wrath ends. God has killed all those people that were causing you trouble if you belong to Jesus. That's the time of blessing. So we're going to have our new bodies then. We're going to be part of that first resurrection. Jesus is going to start reigning on the earth. We've got the Great Tribulations, 1,260 days. So what's this 1,290 days? I'm not sure what that is. But I get the 75 days. So 1,260 to 1,235. That's 75 days. I think that's the time of God's wrath. So there may be a time of mourning in there. We got two witnesses that are going to be around and they're going to die. They seem to be immune to the beast and the false prophet, so they weren't able to kill him during the time of the Great Tribulation, but right at the end of it, they do kill him. And so there may be a 30-day period of mourning in there, and that may be why there's 1,290 days. That's a theory. Take it for what it's worth. I just don't really know what it's for. So that shows us that the Revelation chapter 6, that starts when the Great Tribulation ends, and it carries all the way through. So this is the entire time of God's wrath. So it's not just the sixth seal doesn't describe one day. It describes 75 days, for instance. And then when we get to chapter 7, it says, after these things. So this vision is ended in chapter 6. Now John sees a completely new vision. This starts a completely new story. And he sees 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor any tree. Daniel in chapter 7 tells us what happens when these 4 winds blow. And when they blow, we get another world empire. So let me just go read Daniel chapter 7. We're going to look at, I think, verses 2 and 3. It says, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. They're stirring up the Mediterranean Sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, different from another. So what beasts came up? We had Babylon, we had Media Persia, we had Greece, and we had Rome. And that covered from about 700 BC until the time of Jesus. So those beasts have come and gone. But they came up because those 4 winds of heaven blew upon the great sea. Well, in chapter 7 here, we see another beast can't come up right now. God says, no, I'm not allowing it. And so what's got to happen before these 4 winds are going to blow? Well, there's going to be 144,000 Jews that become Christians. They're sealed. And what's the seal? They get the Holy Spirit of God. And so before we can have another world empire, this revived Roman Empire is what it's going to be. We can't have that until 144,000 Jews become Christians. That's how this story comes. Right here, we can't have the start of Daniel's 70th week, or Daniel's those last 7 years that are mentioned in Daniel 9:27, until 144,000 Jews become Christians. I think we're up to about 30,000 in the land of Israel now. We'll see that these were virgins and they're men, so that narrows it down even more. It's not even all Jews becoming Christians. It's probably young men. Then we see that there's a great tribulation. So we see that 3.5 year period of great tribulation. And that's specifically mentioned in verse 14. So we see all those people that are killed, they're all up in heaven. A great number of them, can't number them. There's going to be a lot of Christians dying during the Great Tribulation. This is not a period of evangelism. This is a period of death. So there's going to be a lot of Christians in heaven at that time. But this is a group that Jesus is going to take care of now. You're going to have that white robe on, and you're going to come back with Jesus. You're not going to have any pain, death, sorrow, none of that stuff. And then, after that great tribulation is ended, we see he opens the 7th seal, and there's silence in heaven for about the space of half an hour. There's always stuff going on in heaven. There's angels singing, holy, holy, holy. And there's new songs going up. We see in Revelation chapter 4, there's a couple of different songs going on. But for half an hour, there's silence. And we see in verse 2, we got 7 angels giving 7 trumpets. Take that out. This is an overlapping dream sequence. So 8:2 actually goes right before 8:6. So 3, 4, and 5 go with this same sequence that we're in. So the angel came and stood at the altar having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense that he should offer with the prayers of the saints. So God's people are praying. So they're mostly killed during the Great Tribulation, but now that golden censer, that actually may be in heaven. So they're praying to God. And what are they praying? They're probably praying the prayer of the martyrs. How long, Lord, until you kill these people? So let's see if I can find that. That's in Revelation 6, and it's the part of the 5th seal. And white robes were given, this is 6:11, and white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said to them that they should rest yet for a little season until their fellow servants also and their brethren, that they should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. So this time, the Great Tribulation, everybody that's going to be killed is going to be killed about this time. And their prayers in heaven, and they're wafting right into God in verse 4. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer, filled it with fire of the earth, and cast it to the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. So all these people that were killed during the Great Tribulation, they say, hey God, when are you going to kill these people that killed us? And God says, I'm going to do it now. So he takes this bowl because these people prayed, and he's going to pour out his bowls of wrath. And there's 7 of those. And we see in the last bowl the voices, the thunderings and lightnings, and an earthquake. That's the throne of God. We see that with the last bowl. We see that in all kinds of different places, including here, where this is a picture of the throne of God coming to earth. And he's coming in vengeance. He's coming in wrath. He's going to judge the earth. He's going to kill those that fought against him. He's going to reward those that were with him, that maybe they even died. And they're going to come back with him. So that'll be part of the first resurrection. They're going to reign with Jesus. So I hope that helps you, how that all fits together. So the 6th and the 7th seal are still in order, but it's part of 2 completely different sequences. So they overlap. And again, you see another overlap with the trumpets, where you see there's a new dream sequence starts in Revelation 8:2 about trumpets. That's not part of this whole sequence. It goes from 7:1 to 8:5. So I hope that helps clear up that mess. I hope I didn't muddle that anymore. But the long and the short of it is 6 chronologies. Each one of them ends the story, and then you go to chapter 20. Finish the story there. Thank you for watching this series. This is a huge series. If you don't get this series, you won't understand the book of Revelation just ever. So good luck.